So one of the things you said early on was one of the perceptions around macroeconomics was that it had become detached from the policy community. How do you intend to reattach the understanding the macroeconomy into the policy community?
So each one of our research hubs is set up and defined by a policy relevant question. So all the sort of ones that I gave before are clearly important policy relevant questions. How do we achieve a sustainable economy is policy relevant for all of us. And so in the structure of the hubs, we have made it clear that every piece of research we're going to fund has to have a policy relevant perspective on it. Now, this is not something that gets tagged on at the end. If we don't see that this is a major policy issue to address, it's not going to get funded. That's for somebody else. It's not for us. We're not saying it's right or wrong research. It's just not for us. So the whole way that we've structured this has been to be very clear that the projects that we're going to fund have to be in this direction. So that's the main way that we're trying to achieve this. We also, in many of our discussions, we have people who work on the policy side taking part in our discussions. So we have representatives from the Bank of England, the Department of Business, Innovation, Energy and Skills come along. Also, the Treasury has had people come along to our meetings. So we try to also engage policymakers at that stage. Many of the conferences and workshops that we hope to be carrying out will also be bringing in various policy-making institutions, perhaps the OECD as well, who've been working on many of these areas. So we've set it up, and we hope to engage very much with policymakers as a way of enforcing that link is always ever present throughout all of the work that the network undertakes.
And what about the broader public? You may be aware that the RSA recently completed 2 years of work on engaging with the broader community on understanding economics and economy. I've also done extended work trying to engage the wider community, and they've discovered that most people are what they call aversive to economics, in that they find it very difficult to engage with, technical, boring, excluding, if you like. And that, I suppose, you could argue that a lot of the arguments from a macroeconomics viewpoint around Brexit fell on deaf ears, maybe partly as a result of that. How can you get to that wider community if we are really building a broader understanding, maybe a communal understanding of how the economy works?
So let me start off by wanting to pass my congratulations to the Royal Society of Arts and also to economy.org. The RSA, I think they've produced a terrific report and done a huge amount for showing how social and public engagement can really be done in a really effective and real world sort of way, not just lip service in really doing it. So I think that's been a great achievement. We work closely with many of those organizations that whose raison d'etre is really public engagement, whether that's economy.org, the Post-Crash Economic Society, Rethink Economics, are all people we have regular dialogues with. We are talking to them about supporting some of their conferences, how we can do joint conferences. They are much better at it than we are in terms of engaging with the public. So we're quite, how can I put it, opportunistic, in the sense that we're more than happy to work with them and for them to help us in that regard. I should say that one thing that we're conscious of is we can't achieve everything all at once. And fundamentally, rebuilding macroeconomics is a research-based network. We take public engagement seriously. We will be doing much more of it once we have some findings from the research that we're supporting. So it's a question of sequencing to a certain extent. But it's also very important to know what you want to get out of public engagement. It's very time intensive and expensive. You need to know what you're trying to achieve. And that's something that is really still an ongoing debate within the network. We would be very happy to receive ideas We are in discussions, as I said, with those organisations you've spoken to, but also the BBC about what is the best way to try and achieve this. And at the moment, it's not our priority because we don't actually have any research findings to talk about. But as we go through the 4 years, then it will be our priority, and certainly towards the end it will be. But we're really having those discussions at the moment to think about how can we be most effective, what do we want to achieve by this sort of public engagement. But we do recognise it's something we want to do, but also it's something that should be an obligation given that we have public funds.